So how did you get to be with Justin Johnson this day on November 17th, 2021?
Uh, we knew that, they had heat on Dolph and head or whatever, so
Who had a hit on whose head?
Big Jook had a hit on Dolph head or whatnot, so
How do you know that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head?
I could quit had told me about it, quit, and you know what I'm saying, being just
How much money was it supposed to be?
100,000.
Reports began circulating about a $100,000 bounty connected to the killing of Young Dolph. Sources alleged that Anthony Big Jook Mims had placed that reward, and later, rumors spread that someone had placed one on him as well. But what Yo Gotti allegedly did next, when he came face to face with his brother's suspected killer inside a prison visiting room, was something nobody expected: the empire, the rivalry, the bloodshed. Let's take a closer look at one of the most explosive and jaw-dropping moments in hip-hop history, a moment that stunned fans across the entire culture. We're talking about Yo Gotti, the Memphis rap mogul, sitting atop an empire reportedly worth over $100 million, walking into a cold prison visiting room with intense emotions weighing on his mind. The man who built Collective Music Group from the ground up stepped into that room carrying years of tension and unresolved conflict. But to truly understand what happened that day, to fully grasp the magnitude of this moment, we have to rewind the timeline and examine how this entire story unfolded. Yo Gotti, born Mario Central Jiden Mims, came from almost nothing. The Ridgecrest housing projects in Memphis, Tennessee, were the kind of environment where dreams rarely survived. During the late 1990s, a young Mario was grinding through the underground scene with mixtapes like From the Dope Game to the Rap Game, selling CDs straight out of car trunks long before the mainstream recognized his name. His 2012 album Live from the Kitchen pushed him onto the national radar. Then in 2016, his hit single Down in the DM took over the culture. Suddenly, Yo Gotti wasn't just a regional rapper anymore, he had become a national hip-hop figure. But what truly separated Yo Gotti from artists who score one hit and fade away was his business vision. He wasn't just chasing chart success, he was building an empire. His label, Collective Music Group, originally known as Cocaine Music Group, officially launched in 2012, over the next decade, it transformed into a serious powerhouse within the music industry. The label went on to sign major artists like Moneybagg Yo, Black Youngsta, Glorilla, and ESTG. Strategic partnerships with Interscope Records gave CMG significant corporate strength. Outside of music, Yo Gotti expanded into real estate investments and even secured ownership stakes in DC United, a professional soccer club. While many artists were playing checkers, Gotti was clearly playing chess. But every empire needs a trusted general, and within CMG, that role belonged to Anthony Big Jook Mims, Yo Gotti's older brother. Born around 1976, behind the scenes, Big Jook was widely seen as the backbone of the organization. He operated as CMG's unofficial second-in-command, handling talent scouting, promotions, street-level connections, and the type of behind-the-scenes operations that couldn't easily be tied to Gotti's polished corporate image. Big Jook frequently appeared in music videos, showing off luxury cars, designer clothing, and a larger-than-life presence on social media. In Memphis, particularly on the city's north side, he was known as a powerful figure, someone who commanded both respect and fear. But this is where the narrative begins to get complicated. For years, whispers circulated that Anthony Big Jook Mims acted as the enforcer, the man responsible for handling the dangerous and violent side of the operation, while Yo Gotti maintained a cleaner public image for executives and cameras. These weren't just random internet rumors, they were conversations repeated in barber shops, neighborhood circles, and anonymous online discussions. The implication was simple: Yo Gotti was the public face of the empire, but Anthony Big Jook Mims was the force behind it. The brothers shared a bond built through years of hardship. Growing up in Memphis meant witnessing violence early, losing friends, and learning that loyalty often meant survival. In 2020, Yo Gotti publicly spoke about their relationship, saying, "My brother has always been my rock. He taught me the game." At the time, those words sounded like a tribute, but in hindsight, they would take on a far heavier meaning, because the game Anthony Big Jook Mims helped teach was about to turn deadly. Enter Young Dolph, born Adolph Thornton Jr., the leader of Paper Route Empire and a powerful symbol of independence in Memphis rap. Dolph wasn't just another artist. He represented a movement. His label Paper Route Empire stood as proof that artists could succeed without major label control. The rivalry between Collective Music Group and Paper Route Empire reportedly began around 2014. According to industry chatter, Young Dolph declined a potential deal with Yo Gotti's label, choosing instead to remain independent. What began as a business disagreement slowly evolved into something much darker. Diss tracks started circulating. In 2017, Young Dolph released Play With Yo Bitch, a track widely interpreted as a direct shot at Yo Gotti's credibility. Gotti Circle responded with their own subtle jabs and subliminal lyrics. At first, some fans believed the tension might simply be strategic promotion for streaming numbers, but then the violence began. In 2017, Young Dolph's SUV was hit with more than 100 gunshots in Charlotte, North Carolina. Miraculously, he survived. Later that same year, another attempt reportedly took place in Los Angeles. Once again, Dolph survived. Rumors on the streets pointed toward Anthony Big Jook Mims as the alleged orchestrator, although no accusations were proven in court. Throughout the controversy, Yo Gotti largely stayed silent. When asked about the conflict, he once stated in a viral clip, "I don't go back and forth on the internet, you're never going to win." Still, critics continued speculating that powerful figures might be pulling strings behind the scenes. The tension between collective music group and paper route empire quickly became one of the most closely watched rivalries in modern hip-hop, but nobody could have predicted what would happen next. Then came November 17, 2021, Young Dolph walked into Makeda's homemade butter cookies in Memphis, and he never walked out. The streets erupted with shock, and once the murder investigation and court proceedings began, the names that surfaced left the entire hip-hop world stunned.
Alright, so the next one from Justin Johnson to Teasy is Dolph rented the whole studio out for the rest of the year. Call Jook, let's make some. Right? That's what it says?
That's what it says.
And that's July 9th, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because on the slideshow we talked about reaching out to Jook on July 31st, but here they're saying, call Jook, we're about to go shoot somebody.
That moment right there appeared to reveal a critical connection. Justin Johnson, also known in music circles as Straight Drop, wasn't simply a random gunman. According to details presented during the investigation, he was allegedly in direct communication with Anthony Big Jook Mims. Inside the courtroom, the defense attorney laid out the timeline piece by piece. Prosecutors referenced text messages reportedly exchanged between Justin Johnson and Anthony Big Jook Mims' phone. Records were also discussed, suggesting repeated contact between the two. Taken together, those communications were presented as evidence pointing toward a larger coordination behind the attack. Investigators argued that the digital trail, texts, calls, and timelines helped prosecutors build a narrative suggesting the operation may have been organized at a much higher level.
It shows on 11/16/2021 at 17:37, 15 hours. Looks like a 331 second outgoing call from Justin Johnson to Anthony Mims.
Right. And you did that much nicer on your slideshow. I just sort of went in and downloaded the actual CDR thing to show all the parts and
Court records later highlighted a 331-second phone call placed by Justin Johnson to Anthony Big Jook Mims. The call reportedly happened on November 16, 2021, just one day before Young Dolph was fatally shot. That's roughly 5.5 minutes of direct conversation. Investigators immediately focused on one question: what exactly was discussed during that call? During court proceedings, prosecutors presented their interpretation of the timeline, suggesting the communication may have been significant, but according to testimony, the story didn't stop there. Investigators also pointed to a series of text messages that appeared to include coded language, messages that prosecutors argued could indicate planning or coordination behind the scenes.
This is a text from Justin Johnson to Jook.
Did he testify about that, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Who are the texts from?
So it's from Justin Johnson to Anthony Mims.
And I know there's more than one text, but I'm concerned about the one on record.
I'm starting with the first one.
Investigators also pointed to text messages allegedly sent by Justin Johnson directly to Anthony Big Jook Mims. According to prosecutors, those communications suggested more than casual conversation. They argued the messages indicated possible planning and coordination tied to the killing of Young Dolph, a development that ultimately shook Memphis to its core. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution presented these exchanges as part of a larger narrative surrounding the events leading up to the tragedy. However, when the defense raised an important question during proceedings, the room reportedly grew quiet. They asked whether investigators had ever attempted to formally interview Anthony Big Jook Mims about his alleged connections to the suspects involved. The response that followed raised even more questions about the investigation.
So we've already discussed all the hardware store and all the other stuff. With regards to Jook, did you all ever try to interview Jook?
Yes.
When did you try to do that?
When we executed a search warrant on his phone
Okay.
when he was at the airport.
Okay. It wasn't annotated that you had talked to him anywhere in the police report, so lead detective said you guys never reached out to him.
Investigators later confirmed that a search warrant had been executed on the phone belonging to Anthony Big Jook Mims at an airport. However, according to testimony presented in court, authorities reportedly did not move forward with a formal interview with him at that time. That detail immediately raised serious questions. Observers began wondering why Anthony Big Jook Mims had not been brought in for deeper questioning despite the alleged connections being discussed in court. As the trial continued, those unanswered questions began to loom over the entire case. Then the courtroom heard from Cornelius Smith. Smith was identified as one of the admitted shooters involved in the killing of Young Dolph, and his testimony dramatically shifted the direction of the proceedings. When prosecutors asked Cornelius Smith how he became connected with Justin Johnson on the day the murder occurred, his response stunned everyone in the courtroom. What he said next would become one of the most shocking revelations of the entire trial.
So how did you get to be with Justin Johnson this day on November 17th, 2021?
We knew that, you know, they had a hit on Dolph and head or whatever, so
Who had a hit on whose head?
Big Jook had a hit on Dolph head or whatnot, so
How do you know that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head?
I could quit had told me about it, quit, and you know what I'm saying, being just
How much money was it supposed to be?
100,000.
Right, then came the statement that stunned the courtroom. According to testimony, $100,000 was allegedly placed as a bounty on Young Dolph. Prosecutors argued that Anthony Big Jook Mims had allegedly offered that amount, turning a long-running Memphis rap rivalry into what they described as a murder-for-hire plot. During testimony, Cornelius Smith said he first learned about the alleged bounty through Hernandez Govan, the man prosecutors described as the middleman who allegedly connected the shooters to the promised payment. What followed in court would expose layers of the case that shocked the entire hip-hop industry. The trials connected to the killing of Young Dolph peeled back what many described as the darker side of the Memphis rap scene. Investigators and prosecutors began outlining a disturbing picture, one where street rivalries could escalate into organized violence, and where the lines between music success and street conflicts sometimes became dangerously blurred. At the center of the prosecution's case stood Cornelius Smith. His testimony became one of the most powerful moments in the courtroom. In September 2024, Cornelius Smith admitted under oath that he had fired the shots that killed Young Dolph. He described the incident in chilling detail. Smith testified that he was paid $40,000 for his role in the attack, a relatively small amount considering the devastating consequences of the crime. During questioning, Smith explained that his actions were influenced by a combination of drug addiction and personal tragedy, including the loss of his own child. According to testimony, he was emotionally broken, financially desperate, and vulnerable, the kind of person prosecutors argued could be manipulated into carrying out a violent act for money. As the testimony continued, Smith described meetings, phone communications, and financial exchanges that investigators said linked street-level operatives to individuals higher up in the chain. Prosecutors methodically laid out their timeline, presenting records and witness accounts intended to show how money allegedly flowed from organizers down to the shooters. Then came another critical moment. When Cornelius Smith was questioned about the financial arrangements he discussed with Hernandez Govan before the attack, the courtroom leaned in to hear what he would reveal next.
Right. And you testified earlier about this. Just to be clear, Govan before the hit on Dolph, before you did it, had already negotiated with you to get $10,000.
Yeah, for me, and 10,000 just.
Investigators said the money trail became a crucial piece of the conspiracy. According to testimony, $10,000 was reportedly connected to Cornelius Smith, and another $10,000 was linked to Justin Johnson. Prosecutors argued that the funds moved through Hernandez Govan, who investigators described as the alleged intermediary in the operation. Those payments, according to the prosecution's theory, were part of the much larger $100,000 bounty that was allegedly connected to Anthony Big Jook Mims. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors presented this financial chain as evidence supporting their claim that the killing of Young Dolph had been organized as a murder-for-hire operation. In their argument, Anthony Big Jook Mims was described as the figure sitting at the top of that alleged chain, but according to testimony, the story didn't end with the shooting itself. Even after Young Dolph had been killed, investigators said some of the individuals involved were still focused on one thing: collecting the money they believed they had been promised.
Now, I want to be clear about, I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I want to make sure $10,000 to you talked about it before, and then he came back to you after the fact and asked you about the 10 because he wanted his money, right?
The trial surrounding the murder of Young Dolph revealed that discussions about the promised payment allegedly continued even after his death, with prosecutors claiming several people were still trying to collect their share of the money, while the credibility of witness Cornelius Smith was heavily challenged by defense attorneys who questioned his reliability due to drug addiction and alleged financial connections to Collective Music Group. Despite this, the court convicted Justin Johnson on September 26, 2024, sentencing him to life in prison plus 35 years, while Hernandez Govan was later acquitted in August 2025, partly because testimony shifted blame toward Anthony Big Jook Mims, who had already been killed on January 13, 2024, in a targeted daytime shooting outside the Perignon restaurant and event center in Memphis, where gunmen fired multiple shots before fleeing in a white Mercedes-Benz, leaving investigators with many unanswered questions about the wider conspiracy.
Where were you at when you heard the news that Jook had passed away? And how did it affect you?
I think I was riding down the street. I got a call, and I just was like, damn, I hated it for Big Daddy, I hate that for anybody that I know,
Even Hernandez Govan, the man once accused of acting as the middleman in the killing of Young Dolph, expressed shock when he learned about the violent death of Anthony Big Jook Mims. In interviews following the trial, Govan spoke about the moment he heard the news. He described the circumstances surrounding Big Jook's killing as sudden and deeply unsettling, saying the situation caught many people off guard. For someone who had spent years at the center of one of Memphis' most controversial cases, the development added yet another dramatic twist to an already complex story. And with Big Jook gone, many of the unanswered questions surrounding the alleged bounty and the events leading to Young Dolph's death may never be fully resolved.
Because he was at a funeral and he was taking a smoke break, or?
Yeah, he was at a repast, when they going to celebrate, life or whatever. Went outside to take a smoke break. And there it was.
The story revolves around the violent aftermath of the murder of Young Dolph and the escalating conflict in the Memphis rap scene. After Dolph's killing, Justin Johnson was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, while testimony from Cornelius Smith linked the plot to Anthony Big Jook Mims. However, Big Jook was later assassinated in a targeted daylight attack outside the Perignon restaurant and event center in Memphis, and his killers remain unknown. The situation intensified when Yo Gotti allegedly confronted Johnson in a prison visiting room seeking answers about his brother's death, leading to a violent attack. The incident highlighted the long-running feud between Collective Music Group and Paper Route Empire, showing how a rivalry between music empires turned into a deadly cycle of retaliation that continues to impact the Memphis community.
Do Govan.
Alright, and who is Govan?
Hernandez Govan Quick. You know about Quick.
Okay, who is Cliff?
Associate.
Alright, you say associate, is he younger or older than you?
Older.
What neighborhood does he hang out in?
Orange Mountain.
Does he live over there?
Yes, sir, he did.
Do you know what street his house is on?
Bragg.
You familiar with that street?
Yes, sir.
The testimony traced the web of connections through neighborhoods, associates, family ties, and street affiliations, mapping the networks that thrive in Memphis's most dangerous areas. These are the same streets that birthed CMG and Paper Route Empire, that produced both Yo Gotti and Young Dolph. Yet today, those streets are drenched in the blood of their own children. What was meant to be a path out, music, has, for far too many, become a road to prison or the grave. As for what comes next, the legal proceedings against Yo Gotti continue to unfold, with the entire music industry watching closely. His empire faces its most uncertain period ever, leadership questions, public relations crises, and the very real possibility that its founder could spend years behind bars. CMG artists have remained largely silent since the news broke, scrubbing social media of commentary and canceling or postponing public appearances indefinitely. The music world watches and waits, unsure what the future holds for one of hip-hop's most successful independent labels. Online speculation has run wild, with countless voices offering theories and opinions on what happened and what it all means. Some argue that Yachty's actions were justified, a grieving brother seeking vengeance where the justice system failed. Others point to the alleged hit list and Big Jook's role in the prior violence, suggesting that the consequences were inevitable for his family. The debate over who was right or wrong in the CMG-PRE feud has reignited with new intensity, with every old grievance and accusation revisited under fresh scrutiny. But one truth remains uncontested: the streets always collect their debts. Young Dolph paid with his life at Makita's Cookies in November 2021. Anthony Big Jook Mims paid with his life outside Perignon Restaurant and Event Center, killed during a smoke break at a funeral repast. And now, Yo Gotti has sacrificed his freedom, his empire, and his carefully cultivated legacy, all in a prison visiting room. In a moment of rage and grief that can never be undone, the Memphis rap scene will never be the same. A city that gave the world legends like 36 Mafia, 8 Ball and MJG, Project Pat, and countless others has been forever scarred by this conflict. The question isn't who won the beef. When you look at the bodies in the ground and the men behind bars, it's clear there are no winners here. The only question left is, how many more lives will be destroyed? How many more families torn apart? How long will this cycle of violence continue? As the sun sets over Memphis, as the skyline fades into darkness, that question remains unanswered. The streets are watching, the streets are waiting, and the streets, as always, will remember everything. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe our channel,